You're listening to Athletic Trainer Finder in the Seat, the reverse interview show where we put employers in the seat. Each episode gives organizations a chance to speak directly to the athletic training profession and explain who they are, what they offer, and why athletic trainers should want to work for them. This is Athletic Trainer Finder in the Seat.
Welcome, everybody. This is Kyle Peckham, the founder of Athletic Trainer Finder. In the seat today, we have John Woolf, the district lead athletic trainer at Coweta County School System in Coweta County, Georgia. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me, Kyle.
For those who may not be familiar with Coweta County, can you tell us a little bit about the district and kind of the communities that you serve?
Yeah, so, I think Coweta County is really expanding. It's tripled in size almost in the last 10 years. It's located 25 miles southwest of Atlanta, so we are kind of close enough that we are sort of a metro-like county, but we still have a little bit of that small town feel. Like I said, there's only 3 high schools in the county. Um, we're only about 40 miles from the Alabama state line as well. So I think it's a great location, and I think what's been so unique about Coweta County is how they have valued athletic training. Essentially, as long as anywhere I've ever been, I've been an athletic trainer in the high school setting for 17 years, and I've pretty much everywhere I've been the first or the second athletic trainer ever there via staff, but Newton High School in particular hired an athletic trainer back in 1974. So Newton High School has had an athletic trainer on staff employed through the school system since 1974. By all accounts, Harry Mullins, who was the first athletic trainer here, was the first high school athletic trainer in the state of Georgia. Newton was built in the early 1900s and has been the longest standing of the 3 high schools. East Coweta was built, and Lloyd Knott was there from 82 all the way up until 2016 when he retired, and it's passed along. And then Northgate was the most recently built school, and Dale Crock has been there, was there from 84 all the way through. So the county has always valued taking care of the kids. That's always been the number one priority. And so the fact that they've had a teacher AT, and then in 2016 we transitioned into a full-time AT role, and then in 2020 we expanded to a full-time AT with a teacher AT stipend, and now we are kind of pushing the standard again, where superintendent obviously could see the need of how difficult it is in today's world to hire that teacher AT role in those dual hours. And so transitioning into 2 full-time non-teaching AT roles directly employed through the school is not something that happens very often. And I think all 3 schools have a great community support system. We've had several $1,000s donated specifically to us by community members just in the past year because of what we try to do, what the athletic trainers in the county try to do for the student athletes and really the population as a whole. No one ever gets turned away. So we've treated teachers, school board members, coaches, kids, coaches, loved ones. I think that's kind of what Coweta County is all about. Really what athletic training is all about is solving problems.
Absolutely. That sounds fantastic. So how big are the schools, and how many athletes do you guys serve?
Yeah, so East Coweta is the largest of the 3 high schools. It's got 3,500 students. So you're looking at roughly 1,100 of those are student athletes. Northgate is 2,600-ish with about 950 to 1,000 student athletes. And Newton is just behind Northgate. It's 2,600 with about 950 athletes. So East Coweta and Northgate both compete in 6A, which is the largest classification in Georgia. We here at Newton are like the second or third largest 5A. So it's really high level competitive, and there's a ton of sports. You have 3 volleyball teams, varsity, JV, freshman. You have 2 softball teams, 3 football teams, a large cross country team. In the fall, you have dance, you have competitive cheer, you have sideline cheer, wrestling. You have five basketball teams. And then in the spring, there are three baseball teams, four soccer teams, boys and girls, two lacrosse teams on each, varsity JV, tennis, varsity JV for both boys and girls. We have gymnastics, we have swim, esports, flag football. Essentially, in the county, if there's a sport that is certified by the GHSA, Coweta County really tries to implement that sport right away to give as many options to our student athletes as we can. Because as we know, students that are in high school that participate in sports are more likely to show up and be successful and just have a better experience in the high school setting. And so really everything with athletics in the county is designed around that.
Yeah, that's great. So it definitely sounds like with the number of sports that you guys have going on, expansion makes a ton of sense. How do you organize your coverage? So with all these different athletic events going on, how do you decide where you're going to be?
Yeah, so I mean, luckily for us, Newton is kind of an old school built complex where we are sandwiched in the middle of a neighborhood. So we're landlocked on a city block style. So right outside the athletic training room, you have the football field, softball field, baseball, we have a track around football, and then we have a grass practice field. For here specifically, I'm the full time athletic trainer, and then Jordan Kennard is a biology slash sports med teacher, and then she's our secondary athletic trainer. So essentially, I'm here during the day. Both my kids go to school just right down the road, and then I come in. And so while workouts are going on, we are on a 4 block schedule. So during first and mostly second block. I come in, we're here for rehabs, for people that are in the weight room, people that get called out of class. I leave and come back. Obviously, Jordan teaches all day, and then we're both here from the time the bell rings until about 5:30, and then it kind of just depends on the day. So with football, generally we're both here. Outside of football, it's just kind of, I've got two kids, Jordan has two kids. So depending on if my wife has to work late or one of my kids has piano or one of her kids has soccer determines who stays, who goes. We try to balance each other out. But obviously, with me being the full time, the split is pretty heavy to my side as it should be. But in a dual AT setting, you're looking at roughly a 50-50 split where we'd want both people to kind of be there for rehabs in the morning, both people to be there for the after school rush. And then it sort of depends on the schedule that day, whether it's just practices, whether it's games. I think when we look at the work calendar, I think the big thing for us is we want to look at it more from a totality of hours than it is kind of how it traditionally looks at where here's your 230 days. We want to look at it more as 1,840 hours, and I've tracked my hours over the last 6 years that I've been here at Newton. So I know kind of roughly we follow this schedule. We should be at roughly that time. And really, with two full time athletic trainers where you're splitting up afternoon, evenings, you're probably going to come in a little bit under, if anything. And then the summers are pretty light by comparison. All three schools work out Monday through Thursday. They start at 8, they end at about 11:30. And what we tell all of our athletes is if you need something, you need to come here during that window that football's here. Obviously, there are summer workouts for everything, pretty much going on all day long. But football, because of the injury risk involved, is our primary coverage component.
It sounds like summertime is your quietest time of the year. When would be your busiest time of the year? I would imagine the fall probably with football, but I feel like
You
in
would think,
Georgia,
but
football's all year round, man. So
yes. So I would honestly say at our schools in particular, spring is the biggest. So the county is going to be putting in a open air indoor facility at all three schools within the next couple of years, which should help open this up. But obviously with JV varsity boys and girls soccer, JV varsity boys and girls lacrosse, and track, that is the fight that always goes on is who can practice where when games are then with three baseball teams you're playing almost. So I would say the most difficult time is from winter break, which is normally the first full week of February, to spring break, which is the first full week of April. Generally, in that 6-week window, there are home events every single night between those teams. So football, like it is pretty much anywhere in the South, it's big. We practice in the afternoons, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Pretty much all three schools practice Thursday morning because we play JV freshman games Thursday afternoon, the Friday night lights. But yeah, springtime coming up to 5A, 6A. Springtime is the real deal in that window. And then after spring break, where you have just varsity sports, it settles down a lot. And winter is kind of a good kind of downtime as well. Thanksgiving aligns with the third week of the playoffs, quarterfinals for football. Softball and volleyball are in at that time. So normally, football is really good. You kind of keep going on, and it doesn't feel so bad working that long. But wrestling is relatively big in the county, but you're only talking 3 to 5 meets in that window. And I think the county overall does a really good job scheduling stuff Monday through Friday that we don't really have Saturday game events outside of a few region basketball games or maybe the odd fundraising event for volleyball or wrestling that they try their best to limit Saturdays because you have to have athletic trainer there, you have to have an admin there, you have to have gate workers there. And so, we want to work as hard as we need to work Monday through Friday so we can be with our families and do what we need to do Saturday and Sundays.
Yeah, that's a nice shift. Up in Vermont, we are almost every Saturday. We've got something going on. Sometimes even on Sundays with the hockey because of the rink
Oh,
and
yeah.
the schedules that are required there. So let's shift gears. I'm seeing a salary range in the mid 55s to the upper 80s. Can you explain where somebody is going to land on that and what types of factors are in play to determine where they are in that range?
The important thing I've learned being in the school system is you have two separate pay scales, right? You have your certified pay scale and your classified. Certified is your teachers. Certified pay scales, you can Google, those are accessible because that comes from state and federal funding. So your degree level, how many years you've been in the system, and like boom, there's your total, and your total all the way until whatever year you retire. Class 5 pay scale comes from local tax revenue. So they have a different set of factors involved in it. It's based off of the county. So for us, the one negative you would say is that your degree level doesn't necessarily factor in like it would on a certified scale. We work off of a step scale. So we do, unlike a lot of counties, we are willing to accept your experience not directly through the school system. For example, I was in outreach for 10 years. So our county, generally speaking, will take a 2-for-1. So your 10 years, we'll count 5 of those depending on how HR verifies your employment. And then it's a formula based off of how many years experience divided by a few factors, and that kind of starts you out on the scale. So, I think there's pros and cons to that. Obviously, there are job opportunities in the surrounding area that offer you a little bit more upfront, but I think the big difference and the benefit of being here is the long-term financial benefits. So when I came in versus where I'm getting paid now, through 6 years is, increased dramatically versus in the outreach model, you're not gonna see a pay raise every year. You may not see a pay raise every 3 to 5 years. Most people that get raises in the outreach setting typically have to change jobs, or you have to fight really hard for it, or you have to leverage another opportunity versus the one you have to get that increase. Versus here, the school board is going to vote every year whether to give you a step increase, a percentage increase. They could do both, or they could do neither, kind of depending on revenue factors outside of everyone's control. So I think the school board has always done a great job taking care of the people that are here. Um, and so, over time, you're going to make your way up the scale. And every couple of years, it kind of comes to a vote to do a percentage increase for all classified pay calendars. And I think the other thing the school board does really well here is our governor over the last 6 years, I think, has voted three um, one-time bonus payments to all certified staff for $2,000, where our school board has voted to add in the money to make that bonus the same for everyone across the board. So even though I was not included in the governor's bill, I got the same bonus that they all did. Um, doesn't happen a lot of places. Definitely not a lot of school systems. I think the other thing, as a young professional in particular, you don't really think about or see is benefits. Everyone says they offer full benefits, but the cost differential is really astronomical. In the outreach model, what I paid for insurance every 2 weeks is 3 times as much as I paid 1 month for insurance now for myself and our 2 kids. So, and you're talking an 8-year gap between the last time I paid for outreach versus what we're paying now. And I think that's a huge differential where we were paying for a middle tier versus we were paying for the best coverage we could have. And I also think the options are way less in a contracted out position. You may only have a gold, silver tier of one, maybe two options versus in the school setting, you have 5 or 6 different options to choose from and tiers of options from there. Uh, and then the long term, when you retire implications is the other big key. In the contracted out model, you're investing in your own 401k and you have to rely on factors outside of your control with the market and the economy. And then some places, depending on the window, some may match your contribution up to a certain percent, 3%, 5%. Some may not match at all. Some may only match in certain windows versus in the TRS. What you put in is slightly more than what an average person would put into their 401k, but then you don't have to worry about it. Radar, who was the athletic trainer here from 1981 to 2016, will tell you now in 26, he makes more money in his retirement than he ever made working because the TRS constantly adjusts to the cost of living and inflation. So, the calculation, again, the longer you work in the system, the larger the percentage of your top 2 years of pay you get with your pension. And then if you work 25 years, it's 50% of your top 2 years of pay. If you work 30 years, you also get insurance. That's not happening in the other model. So the fact that, if I work here, right, in the theoretical thing that the scale never changes, I make 90K, I get my insurance paid for when I retire, and that 90K is 45, actually be 60%. So it'd be almost 50K you get as your pension. Now, when we fast forward 20, 30 years, obviously that scale is going to continue to move. That number is going to continue to move just with the changes of cost of living and everything else. So obviously, I don't want to throw an imaginary number out there that I don't know what it is, but we can all imagine as that scale moves what that top number is going to be. So if you're here and you stay here, if the school board continues to invest that way they always have and historically have been, you're going to have a pension on par, if not better than what most starting salaries are right now. And you're going to get raises way more frequently than you would in the outreach model. In 10 years, I got 3 raises. 2 of them I had to fight really hard for. Versus here, what I've moved in the last 6 years, I've increased my salary more in 6 years than I had in the previous 10. And I didn't have to go on other interviews or leverage other jobs or go have difficult, uncomfortable conversations with people to try and get a dollar raise. So you lose a little bit on the front end, but you gain so much more on the back end that you don't really realize until you've been through it and see both sides of it of is a couple $1,000s a year worth the long-term security? I don't think so. but I'm also 40, married with kids. But I think someone coming in, that's the one negative for me is I started this late in the game. So to get my 30 years, I'll be older. But if you come in as a new grad at 24, 25, you're talking 30 years, you're 54, 55, retire with a pension that's going to go with you. You know,
It's a no-brainer.
I certainly think so.
Let's talk a little bit about your support model. So, obviously, in Georgia, standing orders are a requirement. So, what is the medical model that you have down there? Do you have a physician for the district? Is it by school? What does that look like?
It's kind of a hybrid. So Georgia Bone and Joint, there are three ortho groups in the county. Georgia Bone and Joint is who we have a long-standing relationship going back decades. So Georgia Bone and Joint supports us on that front, and then they also provide coverage on Friday nights.
Let's talk a little bit about your facilities. So, I know you sent me a little bit of a sneak peek video, and it looked pretty sweet. Can you just kind of describe what resources you have available to you in your district?
Yes, Noonan actually was hit by an EF4 tornado in March of 2021. So um, the previous campus was 13 separate buildings built over a 100-year span. It was just obviously in need of an upgrade, and thankfully, no one was injured or no one was killed during the tornado. So we had to rebuild everything: new athletic facilities, new high school. So that was a long 2-year painful process. The athletic facility opened in August of 2023. The school opened in August of 2024. So at Newton, we have a 2,500 square foot athletic training facility. There's a garage underneath with ice machines, everything else. So we have a dedicated recovery room. We have laser, ultrasound, E-stim, HIVAMAT, shockwave, BFR. We have red light therapy. Obviously Normatex. The big thing everyone kind of looks at is we actually have a React for. It's an Italian-based company that does proprioception work. So, I mean, we have everything that a mid-major college would have. East Coweta is probably about 15 to 1,800 square feet. Northgate, you sort of look at as more of a traditional high school setting, so it's probably 6 or 700 square feet, but I think that's the other big benefit with this opportunity is that the superintendent has been through this. He was a coach, he was a athletic director, a principal, he oversaw the athletic directors at one point at the county level, and now he's our superintendent. Both of his kids are athletes in the system. So his big thing with what is going on at Noonan is exactly that. I want this to be the model everywhere. I want a kid, regardless of whether they're, you know, in navy and gold, maroon and white, purple and gold, when they walk through into the athletic training facility, they have the same equipment, the same opportunity, the same level and standard of care. So we are going to be purchasing new equipment for East Coweta and Northgate. We're going to be renovating those spaces as well, expanding both of those spaces as well, so that the gap between the three of us is astronomically smaller. East Coweta, by all standards, has a well above average high school athletic training facility. They have 5 tables, 2 E-stim units, a 3-seat taping station, pretty much the budget equipment you need to operate at a high level at a high school. Northgate, obviously, it's a little landlocked with their facility, but we kind of come up with a couple ideas of how we plan to expand that to be in that 15 to 1,800 square foot range as well. I think the other thing, when we're asking people to be here and do rehabs during the day, the whole point of hiring you through the system is to save those kids money. I think when we do parent presentations here at Newton, we've tracked only what we do from a physical therapy perspective. And over that child's 4-year career here, we will have saved that class in our community $1.4 million just in physical therapy. So that is the goal for all three schools, that we are going to provide them with not only everything that a PT clinic has, but really things that most kind of small D1 colleges have. Um, we want this to be a place that people come through when they're thinking about moving in the county and saying, wow, like they don't just talk about taking care of the kids, they actually do it. All three schools have someone who specifically works in the weight room. Dano Burdett here, that's all he does all day is he is a CSCS that treats all of our student athletes in the weight room, works well together. East Coweta has their guy, Northgate has their guy. So it's set up a lot differently than your standard traditional high school. I mean, we all three operate like we're Division II school as far as resources go. And from a budget perspective, to speak to us, for example, I know through the provider we buy supplies for, the average high school budget uh, per their data is about $3,500, which is still higher than a lot of most places that I've worked in my career. We are several magnitudes above that. East Coweta is several magnitudes above that. Northgate is above that, not as much as we would like, but that's sort of why I've been put in this position and why I think this model is also sort of unique is we operate more like a medical model in a college. So I'm the one doing the interviewing and hiring process. I'm the one who picks who's going to what school. And yes, obviously, they still need to work with their head coaches, work with the athletic director. But I think what's different in here is that an athletic trainer is the one helping you set policies and procedures, setting your hours, the one working with the ADs to make sure we have a budget that matches with what we're trying to do, which is if a kid comes in and needs something, we're supposed to have it. The kids post op, we're going to have everything we need. That if mom and dad and kid want to do all of their rehab here, they're going to do all of their rehab here. We're going to be able to food dress change. We're going to be able to do everything we need from early rehab stages to mid stage to end stage to return to play. That, you know, the goal is you do not have to go outside of your school to receive the care you need as a student athlete or really any student unless you just desire to or we feel like we need it from a diagnostic perspective. We don't want you to have to go elsewhere. The whole point of Coweta County Schools is to take care of the kids, whether that's with food, whether that's academically, with support programs for after school, before school, or those that are struggling financially. There are a lot of programs that the county offers that are designed with the kid first, and athletics and athletic training is no different. With the whole goal is taking care of the kids and not trying to push the financial burden back onto the family, but investing in the space and reinvesting that into the community so that they can get what they need.
Yeah. And I think that's a gold standard for athletic training and athletic health care in the secondary school setting. If you can get administration that really supports that mission, it really creates a great opportunity and a great place to work. One question I do have is what challenges have you run into? It sounds like you've had a lot of support, you have a lot of resources at your disposal. Like, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced in this role?
Uh, so obviously we're looking at growth positions. So, like I said earlier, what it's been like here since 2020 is one full-time AT and a teacher AT. Obviously, there have been greater and greater challenges trying to fill the teacher AT role at the other schools. I also think in the post-COVID masters only program, right? The job market that existed, starting in May to when football started has shifted back exponentially. So I've only been in this role here as the director of sports medicine for about 4 weeks. The primary challenge is just trying to find people interested in the opportunity. Northgate had difficulty hiring for a while just because, again, I think what attracted me to your website and to you in particular is exactly what the mission that you went through is. There's no great way to find an athletic trainer currently. There's no centralized position. So, for a long time, Northgate posted it kind of the same places they posted teacher openings. Well, athletic trainers don't look there. So we had to, contract out, and we've had, difficulty because that job hasn't been posted in normal locations for a long time and only recently even went up on LinkedIn. East Coweta, the teacher kind of moved on to something else. So, there's an expansion for the extra role there. The other athletic trainer there is about to go on maternity leave. So we're looking at 1 to 2 positions there. Obviously 2 positions at Northgate. And then since I'm kind of still working here, but I'm also kind of overseeing everything from the county level, Jordan and I are going to get another full-time athletic trainer here as well. So we'll have 3. So that way the other full-time athletic trainer can kind of take on some of my day-to-day responsibilities while I go through the process, especially in these early stages of doing that. So that's definitely been a challenge, kind of grassroots marketing this thing up to this point with reaching out to people on LinkedIn. We've emailed every program director in Georgia, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, trying to get it out there. And then obviously with the change that was made 4 weeks ago from going to a 220 to a 230, that's an extra 80 hours of pay. Um, and so kind of all those things kind of factor in. And then obviously while the facility here pre-tornado was still very nice, it was older, it was landlocked, it didn't have all the bells and whistles, and we've kind of built that up over time where with anything you show the level of expertise you have and how we do a great job taking care of the kids, and then the athletic department and the county sort of see that and want to invest further because they see the benefit. And I think that's the big thing with any athletic trainer in the high school setting is feeling like you're not in an echo chamber, but being able to see those opportunities pay off in your favor. So the tornado accelerated a lot of our facility recovery. Obviously, the challenges at the other 2, they haven't been hit by a tornado, which, there's, uh, good and bad with that. But, they're both due for a facility upgrade. Superintendent knows that. Principals know that. The ADs know that. And so, whoever comes in, I think that's the biggest challenge is that it took us 2 years to build that. Everyone comes in here and says, "Wow, this is awesome," which it is. A great place to come in and work every day. But there was a 2-year window where we had a table out in the hallway. We're working out in this bathroom, or in the summers, the whole building's closed, so we're out on the track in the Georgia heat here in the South, where it was a long 2 years at that point. And so obviously, it's going to take some time to get stuff approved, get all that in order, but there is a lot in place and a lot of wheels turning in that direction. And we just need people that want to come in and be patient for a year or 2 and help show the value, like we've shown the value, so that we could get all the boxes checked from an investment standpoint to get the other 2 facilities like they are here. And then I think, like it is in the high school setting anywhere, the challenge of it is also one of the things that are most exciting, which is you're 99% of the time, you're the first opportunity to teach people what an athletic trainer actually is, what they can really do, because the few that have interacted with them in club events, tournament events, you're providing coverage versus we're not a coverage model. We're not a show up at 2 o'clock and you stand out there and practice, make sure emergency doesn't happen. We're in a collegiate care model We want you here. We want you utilizing all of your skills. We want you to do the eval, do the rehab, do the return to play. In the state of Georgia with the Practice Act, don't even have to see a provider if you have a concussion. In the state of Georgia, we can diagnose, evaluate, treat, and clear concussions. So that's a big thing too here is kind of building those relationships with the nurses at the county level, school counselors, to get all those kind of things lined up and moving in the same direction for the kids because that's what it's all about.
Yeah. I mean, man, you're making me want to move down to Georgia. These are the exact types of positions I want to highlight because I think the things that you've discussed today are really difficult to push through in a job posting. So I think it's really important, if somebody's thinking about Coweta County, being able to see, and hear about all the good things that you've put into place and where you're headed, it's really important. Do you have anything else that you want to touch base on before we close this out?
No, I mean I think that's about it. Like you said, I know being in outreach for 10 years before my six, about to be 7 years here. I dreamed of this type of opportunity. I loved working in the collegiate setting. I loved working as an intern in the NFL. I didn't love the hours. I I'm married. I want to enjoy be home with my wife. I've got kids. I want to be able to go places, do things, and I think, like you said, you don't realize how much different this opportunity is than kind of the outreach model in a lot of surrounding areas where in the outreach model, understandably, it's a business. So ultimately, you need enough referrals or they need enough money from the school on the front end in order to keep you there. I was moved 6 times in 10 years because they'd put me out of school and then there weren't enough referrals or finances weren't there. So, hey, we want to keep you. So we're just going to move you over here. We're going to move you over here. Versus here, that's not the case. This is pay while, there are other high school jobs that may offer more, they aren't the same model. You get dropped off at the school, whatever the school has or doesn't have, so be it. We don't really care. We care about the business model, which I understand it makes sense. Here is just like a college where the goal is to invest enough to take care of the kids without them having to go elsewhere if they don't want to. And I think when you look at it that way, I look no further than, some of the job postings you've put, not to name anyone specific, but there's been a collegiate job opening not really far from Coweta County to be the third athletic trainer for football, making 15, 20 grand less than what we're offering with half the hours in a light summer and everything else. I mean, there's a double A baseball organization offering less than half the hourly rate that we would offer someone as, a new grad with no experience. So I was the same way. You come out, man, I want to be power four. I want to be professional sports. And a lot of that is because of the resources. You don't really think about the pay kind of getting in and starting off and how long it takes if you ever get to that pay level that those hours and that stress level makes sense versus here we have a lot of high level athletes. We have athletes that have been drafted. We have athletes signing Division One scholarships every year. So you get a lot of that experience, a lot of that opportunity working with high level athletes, working with a bunch of different demographics, socioeconomic backgrounds in a place where from top down, superintendent on down, all understand, know, and value athletic training. The school board understands that too. School board members have been treated by our athletic trainers across the county. So, this is all the exciting opportunities of a college job with better pay, better hours, just not the prestige per se, of that. And I think with the three schools in the county, there's a huge rivalry between the three of us. Drake Stadium out here at Newton seats 8,000 on the home side, another 2 or 3 on the visitor side. And when we play East Coweta, or when we go there, it there's not enough seats for everyone that comes to that game. The Coweta Cup between our three schools matters more than anything else with every other sport. It matters more than, winning the region. It sometimes matters more than how far we go in the state playoffs versus how many times we beat EC or Northgate. And so I think it's such a great small town feel without being isolated or really being that small of a community. So you have all of the geographic benefits. Atlanta's right there. Auburn, Alabama State lies right there. It's 3 hours from the Gulf. It's 3 or 4 hours from the ocean. You have a big metropolitan area, and you have a fast growing community that values athletic training at the high school level on par with any program anywhere. And I think really when you compare what we're doing at Coweta County, there's some places in Texas you can kind of look to that are on par, but from Newton specifically, we are the largest high school athletic training room in the state of Georgia, and there's really not anybody close. And when we update the other two facilities, you're looking at a county and three facilities that are as big, if not bigger, than anywhere else you could go outside of the Division I schools in the state.
If you are interested in applying for the open positions within the Coweta County School District, you can find the job posting on the Athletic Trainer Finder job board. You can also reach out to John directly at john.wolf@cowettaschools.net. Thanks for tuning in to Athletic Trainer Finder in the Seat. This series is built to go beyond the job posting and give athletic trainers a clearer look at the people, expectations, support, compensation, and culture behind the role, and give employers a place to tell their story, explain what makes their organization different, and speak directly to the profession. To learn more, explore open roles, or connect with Athletic Trainer Finder, visit www.atcfinder.com. This has been Athletic Trainer Finder in the Seat.